This week's episode of Welcome to Derry expands the lore of Pennywise and deepens the connections between the book, the films, and the series' own mythology. After this episode, we're left with some big questions. What does Dick Hallorann's vision in the helicopter really mean? Why does he tell the general that Pennywise should never have seen them? Why, as Rose says, can't Pennywise leave the limits of the forest? What connections does this episode have with other works by Stephen King? And where was Hank really the night of the movie theater incident? Let's talk about all that and much more in this full breakdown of Episode 3 of Welcome to Derry. This episode, titled Now You See It, it's an excellent episode in many ways, except visually, where the series swings between moments of brilliance and some very mediocre scenes. Remember, I'm analyzing this series episode by episode. You can find the previous ones here on the channel, because I go a bit deeper than most reviews. I also point out references to other Stephen King works that make each episode far more enjoyable. The episode opens with a fantastic flashback that shows how strong the production design and art direction really are. Not just in that opening, but also in the diner scene with Rich and Will enjoying a hamburger. That's something Welcome to Derry consistently nails. The costumes and sets are top-notch. Even though this episode wasn't directed by Andy Muschietti, he does make a quick cameo. He's the man playing piano in the House of Horrors. It's subtle but fun to spot. We go back to 1908, during the infamous Kitchener Iron Works explosion, where 102 people died, 88 of them children. In King's novel, the event took place in 1906, but like the first It movie, the series keeps it in 1908. As Ben once read in Derry's history book at the library, the explosion caused a massive shockwave through the town, and during the funeral, they discovered something sinister. Could it be connected to Pennywise? It's likely we'll see that explored in future seasons, the ones Andy Muschietti mentioned, focusing on the events of 1908 and 1935, the 27-year cycles when Pennywise awakens and destroys everything in his path. In this fair, we follow Francis, the young boy who, as we learn later, grows up to be General Francis Shaw, a man who has spent 54 years haunted by what he saw in Derry as a child. The fair also includes clear references to the mystical turtle, Maturin, the cosmic being that opposes Pennywise. And yes, it's appeared in every episode so far. You can spot it in the ball toss game, next to a furry clown doll. It's a fun nod since, in King's universe, the turtle and Pennywise are eternally linked. I won't dive into that now, but the short version is, the turtle symbolizes protection. And in that game, it's struck by the ball just like the clown, showing that in this endless game of cat and mouse called life, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. We also see the slingshot that Francis's father later gives him, an object that becomes incredibly important for Hallorann and his connection to the supernatural. Inside the House of Horrors, we get a creepy gallery of characters, the dog boy, the skeletal man with long limbs, and the conjoined twins linked by what looks like a real organ. Not fake, at least not in this version of Derry. Considering the time period, surgery like that didn't exist, so these people probably lived off sideshow performances. But the scariest thing for Francis, the one that will haunt him for decades, is the tall, one-eyed man, a terrifying figure orchestrated entirely by Pennywise. The man in the top hat who insists Francis enters the attraction is clearly another of Pennywise's tricks to feed on human fear. There's also a sad female clown in the background, but I don't think she's connected to Pennywise directly. It's possible we'll see her true story later in the season, or maybe in the rumored 1908 Focus season. Right now, it's safe to assume Pennywise hasn't yet discovered the clown form that lets him approach children without suspicion. While his father fixes a car nearby, Francis buys a small bottle of water from a group of Native American kids, a moment that ties him to Rose, who later explains the power that binds their families to the forest and its secrets. The slingshot becomes a symbol of that bond, linking their destinies and establishing the connection between the Shaw family, the native tribe, and the dark force sleeping under Derry. By accident, Francis crosses into the forest, discovering the heart of the horror itself. It feeds on his fears, twisting his mind like a spider wrapping its prey. I have to say, the visual effects in this episode were noticeably weaker. Personally, I loved the killer baby from earlier episodes, but here, the one-eyed man and the graveyard sequence looked rough. I get it. CGI creatures in daylight are tricky, especially on a TV budget. but some shots were just bad. Still, the atmosphere makes up for it. We know that in this forest lies the crater where Pennywise's meteor first landed, his true birthplace on Earth. He can't go beyond its boundaries, likely because the native tribes performed a ritual of containment centuries ago. As Rose tells Francis, it's a secret he must protect with his life. He doesn't remember much now, since he spent so long away from Derry, but the show clearly plans to reveal what that ritual was, and more importantly, how it was broken, allowing Pennywise to roam freely again. In the present-day storyline, the military plot is by far the strongest part of the episode. I think the casting of Rose is excellent. Her younger and older versions are almost identical, which helps the story feel seamless. As many suspected, the owner of the antique shop is of Native American descent, and her connection to Pennywise and the forest suggests she's part of a secret order of guardians. A native circle that protects Derry's darkest truths, the entity's existence, and the rituals used to contain it. When Francis is briefed, the military reports that the Bradley's car only had blood and bullet shells, nothing else. They were hoping to find an object capable of controlling Pennywise, but they failed. What they do know, however, is that the entity follows 27-year cycles. They specifically reference 1935, when many citizens witnessed the creature taking on different forms. A clear echo of what we've already seen in the It timeline. All of this happens in the shadow of the Bradley Massacre, another tragedy caused by Pennywise, similar to what happened nearly 30 years earlier. As we know, Derry has a strange amnesiac effect on those who leave it. People forget. That small detail connects beautifully with the mythology from It Chapter 2, where those who escape Derry lose all memory of its horrors. In a later scene, Francis meets Rose again, and we start to link this timeline with everything we saw in the It films, particularly the events that happened 28 years after the Losers Club first faced Pennywise in 1989. Francis's father was transferred out of Derry when he was a child, forcing him to leave Rose and his memories behind. He barely remembers that summer, or her, until he receives a decommission order that triggers fragments of his past to resurface. Now the pieces begin to align. The events, the symbols, and his sense of déjà vu all confirm one thing. Francis is the perfect person to lead the military excavation project. He's seen Pennywise before, and he knows the secret Rose once told him. It's implied that he returned to Derry because he hopes to control Pennywise, to weaponize what Rose described in her legend. Whether he succeeds is unclear, but it's evident that Hallorann is the key, and he's already warned Francis that everything will go terribly wrong. Seeing The Shining used in this series feels incredible. It ties King's universes together beautifully, and it's handled with great taste. Subtle, but powerful. Hallorann uses his telepathic ability to ensure fair treatment for his fellow soldiers, and to protect them from prejudice. He also senses the supernatural link between Francis, Rose, and the forest. Francis suggests giving the slingshot to Hallorann, believing it might help him channel his psychic connection. In the world of The Shining, objects charged with trauma or supernatural history can act as conduits, focusing psychic energy like a compass that points toward the source of fear. But something's off. Even though Hallorann, Hanlon, and Russo are working on the same classified mission, it's clear that Hanlon and Russo don't know everything. When Dick goes into his trance aboard the helicopter, their confusion says it all. They know they're looking for something, but they don't know what, why, or how. Hallorann's visions are extraordinary, one of the episode's most powerful moments. He finds himself trapped in the sewers, facing Pennywise's red wagon, which slowly opens to reveal two glowing yellow eyes. The same glowing stare that terrified Bill Denbrough decades later. The vision then shifts. Hallorann sees World War II trenches with a ghostly figure in the distance. We can't tell if it's Pennywise or his grandmother, dressed in a long nightgown. Fans of King's Dr. Sleep will recognize this. Hallorann once said his grandmother taught him everything he knows about the supernatural and how to control his abilities. Like in it, Pennywise's victims are suspended in midair, floating, stored for later, like insects in a spider's web. What does the World War II vision mean? It's still unclear, but it could suggest that during the war, the widespread fear among soldiers became a feast for Pennywise, a perfect psychic storm for him to feed on. Hearing Bill Skarsgård's voice again as Pennywise was incredible. It's a reminder of how perfect his performance is, both terrifying and hypnotic. And yes, for those who don't know, Skarsgård is confirmed to appear in several more episodes, which is very promising. Fortunately, Hanlon helps pull Dick out of his trance before Pennywise can trap him permanently. They return to the base and inform Francis of what they saw. The danger is closer than ever. As the native elders say, they live only an hour away from Derry, meaning the forest is full of sacred relics that protect not only the people but the land itself. But the excavations are breaking those barriers, and that protection won't last much longer. I have to say, Francis is an outstanding character. Behind his calm smile hides a man with a very clear agenda. He'll do whatever it takes to achieve his goal, even if that means unleashing something far beyond his control. He wants a weapon that could give the United States the upper hand in the Cold War, and he doesn't care what he has to do to get it. That's why he lies so easily to Rose, telling her they're just improving the terrain and laying pipelines, when in reality, he's probing for the place Pennywise hides. Now we also know that the people spying on the excavation belong to Rose's group, the descendants of the tribe who once sealed the creature. Her nephew, Daniel, is part of that resistance movement, along with his friends, who will almost certainly end up in direct conflict with the military, a conflict that won't end well for anyone. We already know where this is going. Hallorann's warning to the general is clear. If they confront Pennywise, the outcome will be catastrophic. Most of the soldiers will die or flee, and those who escape will forget everything, leaving Derry once again in darkness. The dinner scene at Hanlon's house was one of my favorite parts of the episode. The racial theme was handled with a lot of care, realistic, tense, and without any heavy-handedness. Charlotte's backstory as a civil rights activist adds depth, but it's clear that this part of her past has become taboo in her own home. They can't even mention it for fear of hurting Leroy's military career. It's subtle but heavy, a quiet tension that grows underneath every polite smile at the dinner table. There's a brilliant detail when Dick mentions how hard it is to find Cajun food in Derry. That single line says a lot. Cajun cuisine comes from the French colonies of the 16th century, heavily influenced by African, Latin American, and Spanish culture. In a town like Derry, overwhelmingly white and conservative, that kind of cooking is rare. It's a small but powerful reminder of the cultural isolation they're living in. Being black in the US military during that time was already difficult. For Leroy, any connection to activism, especially through his wife, could ruin his reputation. So Charlotte's silence isn't just fear, it's survival. But silence always breeds distance, and this scene makes that painfully clear. Leroy looks tense, Charlotte hides her frustration behind sarcasm, and Dick feels the awkwardness the moment he walks in. Then there's the moment when Hallorann uses the Shining to sense something personal. He realizes Leroy has a child. This confirms to those who didn't already know that Dick can enter other people's minds. That revelation shakes Leroy deeply, forcing him to connect feelings and memories from that night of the beating, when the army tested him in what they called a training exercise. This moment confirms that the beating wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. It was part of an army experiment, most likely tied to Pennywise's influence or the energy around Derry. Hallorann already suspected it, but now he's sure. And when Leroy snaps, telling him never to enter his mind again, you believe him. It's an incredible scene, powerful and intimidating. Hallorann reassures him, saying Leroy has nothing to fear. Literally. He explains that Leroy lacks the part of the brain that processes fear, which means Pennywise can't touch him. That's an extraordinary revelation. It suggests that the clown who feeds on terror can't affect someone who doesn't experience it. But that raises a chilling question. If Leroy can't be manipulated through fear, what can Pennywise use against him? As I mentioned in my previous analysis, Leroy's emotions seem to be his weak point. Maybe not emotional fear, but moral fear. Fear of failure, of losing honor, of losing everything he's fought to build. He might not fear death, but he fears disgrace. That's where Pennywise could strike. If that's true, we might see Pennywise attack Leroy through guilt, pride, or temptation rather than horror. And we know Leroy survives. He appears later in the timeline as Mike Hanlon's grandfather, the man who first warned him about Derry's evil. But survival doesn't mean escape. The cost of that survival is something the show will likely reveal. The cinematography in this episode had a lot of ups and downs. Some parts looked incredible, but others, not so much. The scenes with the kids, for example, are probably the weakest visually, even though they contain some great ideas. We start with Lily being released from the Juniper Hill Psychiatric Hospital, which felt a bit underwhelming, especially after the intense cliffhanger from the previous episode. The doctor tells her mother that he's increased Lily's dose of chlorpromazine, an antipsychotic sedative used to treat psychosis and schizophrenia. On one hand, it makes sense. Lily looks much calmer now, which fits with her medication. But the transition between episodes feels abrupt. I wish there had been some kind of montage, even a short one, showing Pennywise tormenting her inside the asylum, feeding on her instability. That would have bridged the emotional gap between episodes perfectly. Instead, it feels like everything was resolved too quickly, which is a shame because there was a lot of potential in that storyline. Still, I like that Lily tries to reconcile with Ronnie. It's a logical next step for her, especially after all the chaos. The school setting works as a microcosm for Derry, cruel, cynical, and ready to mock anyone's pain. The scene where the other kids make fun of Hank's fate is disgustingly realistic. Humanity has always had that ugly habit of laughing at tragedy, and this scene nails it. One symbolic detail I loved was the lipstick used to vandalize Ronnie's locker. When she goes to wash her hands afterward, it mirrors the act of washing blood off, as if she feels guilty for her father's situation, like she's somehow responsible for everything that happened. But is she, really? If Ronnie hadn't let Lily and the others into the theater that night, the baby wouldn't have killed anyone, her father wouldn't be in prison, and none of this would be happening. The question lingers. Is guilt the same as responsibility? I would have liked to see more resentment from Ronnie toward Lily. That tension could have added emotional weight, but narratively, it makes sense to resolve it quickly, since the two girls now have a common goal: to prove to the police that Lily isn't crazy and that Pennywise is real. Their plan is simple: capture the apparitions on film. But here's the chilling question. As we see at the end, the photos show ghosts and even the clown himself. So when they take them to the police, will those images still be there? Or will they vanish, erased by Pennywise's manipulation of perception? Are we watching supernatural evidence or just illusions planted by him inside their minds? Now, about Hank, his prison scene is strange and layered with meaning. If he's telling the truth, why was a pack of his favorite cigarettes found in such a suspicious place? The answer seems obvious. He's not lying about the movie theater, but he's definitely hiding where he was that night, and it wasn't at home. This could mean a few things, and one possibility stands out. Either Hank is homosexual, or he's having an affair with someone important's spouse. Maybe even both. And that's not a joke. Remember, we're in a time and a town where being black was already dangerous, and being gay made things even worse. If Hank is involved with another man in Derry, especially someone powerful or married, that secret could destroy both of them. And if he's seeing a white woman, say, the police chief's wife, that would be even more disastrous. The show doesn't confirm it yet, but the tension around that detail is deliberate. The sheriff even warns him, in Shawshank Prison, things won't go well for a man accused of killing children. That's a direct reference to the fictional Shawshank State Penitentiary from King's Universe, first introduced in Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption and later immortalized in the film with Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. As for Rich and Will, the new kids who feel like a pre-losers club, I actually like them. They're funny and work well together. Will is analytical, while Rich is carefree and charismatic. Their chemistry mirrors that of Leroy and Russo. I can't help but wonder if Rich is Russo's son. He's got the same haircut, similar features, and he's new in town. It would make perfect sense. That small toy airplane he throws from the water tower is a nice touch too. It connects him to Derry's history in a subtle way. The water tower, by the way, was mentioned in the first It film and is a major location in King's original novel. Though it's never been explored this much before, now it finally feels like part of the mythos. Rich mentions his uncle was a Santero, someone who practiced Santeria, a polytheistic Afro-Cuban religion that worships deities called Orishas. He explains that his uncle used to perform rituals by the riverside to reclaim debts people owed him. Rich tries to recreate one of those rituals, badly. Because, as we see, he doesn't really believe any of this is real. That disbelief is intentional. It's what makes this sequence frustrating but thematically fitting. Will and Rich are skeptical, not out of arrogance, but out of denial. They can't accept what they're hearing. It's the same psychological barrier the Losers Club faced decades later. The cemetery sequence left me conflicted. On one hand, I love the old school horror vibe. It feels like something straight out of the 90s or early 2000s, with glowing ghosts and fast chases. On the other hand, the green screen backgrounds and fake fog look terrible. Lily and Ronnie pedaling against a static backdrop is painfully obvious, but honestly, it doesn't ruin the experience for me. The episode's story, tension, and atmosphere more than make up for it. The terror, the lore, the military subplot, and Pennywise's appearance all balance the flaws. And that final photograph, revealed thanks to Will's curiosity, ties it all together beautifully. I know many viewers will focus on the weak visual effects and dismiss the episode because of them, but that's short-sighted. I've watched enough TV to remember shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural, or Charmed. The effects weren't perfect, but the storytelling mattered more. Welcome to Derry has delivered on everything that counts: atmosphere, pacing, and mythology. Pennywise is here now, and things look grim, especially for this new group of kids, who clearly aren't going to have the same luck as the Losers Club. If you enjoyed this analysis and want to keep following the series with me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you in the next episode, and remember, in Derry, some things you see never really leave you.